Welcome to App Stories, a weekly exploration of the world of apps. Today's show is brought to you by Collide, Direct Mail, and Kensington. I'm John Voorhees, and with me, of course, is Federico Viticci. Hey, Federico.
Hello, John. How are you?
It's been quite a week. I mean, it's been a HomePod and AirPods Pro week. I'm still not used to saying AirPods Pro. It kind of bugs me, but...
You want to say AirPod Pros?
Kind of. I want to say AirPod Pros. I don't know.
Should have called them ProPods.
ProPods. that would be much better. You know, you really should. They should hire you to do the naming. You've always come up with the best names.
You know,
for someone who hates nicknames of Apple products,
the nickname guy.
You're very good at coming up with them.
You got an Apple product, I got a name for it. You know,
all right.
I'm well known for that. Absolutely. Before we dig into this week's topic, which you made me notice has sort of become a tradition here on App Stories, like an annual tradition.
Right.
Around this time of year, we do an Apple Watch episode. And this, I can't believe that I'm saying this, but this will be the third one we're doing.
I know. It's been a long time.
It's been a long time we're doing this show. And we still got a huge backlog of topics.
We do.
I guess that's how podcasting works, if it goes well. Before we talk about the Apple Watch, so our annual Apple Watch update, I wanted to follow up on what you just mentioned. It's been a HomePod week in terms of software. Many of the features that Apple promised as coming to the HomePod back in June at WWDC are now finally available with iOS, or Apple calls it iOS. Technically, it's called Audio OS, as is the software for the HomePod.
I had that debate with myself as I was writing a story about it this week, because I know you use Audio OS too, and I think that's the correct terminology. But when you look at the release notes,
it's called iOS.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So who knows what the best? You know, maybe one day you can use iOS, the other day you can use Audio OS, depending on what you prefer. Version 13.2 was released early in the week. I believe it was Monday or Tuesday.
I think it was Monday. Yeah.
Monday evening. Yeah. And I wrote about it, and then the update was pulled a few hours later because it was breaking people's HomePods. It was making them continuously restart and basically be unusable.
I wrote about it too because I had some issues. They weren't bricking issues, but the multi-voice support was a little rocky in that release. And
then the update came back on Wednesday evening, a couple of days later, as 13.2.1. So that seems safe to update now. If you didn't update your HomePod on Monday, you can now check for updates in the Home app. You can either, in the main home view, you can tap on the home icon in the top left corner, select speakers and check for software updates and update all speakers at once. Or you can go into a specific room of the Home app, long press on the HomePod, and from settings, check for updates for that individual HomePod. That being said, I wrote about the HomePod's new audio features earlier this week. I wrote about handoff with the iPhone. You can now physically wave your phone over the HomePod to transfer whatever is playing on your phone to the HomePod, and vice versa from the HomePod to the iPhone as well. You can hand off audio using a new action in shortcuts for iOS and iPadOS 13.2. The action is called Handoff Audio Playback, and it lets you transfer audio between Apple devices, between iPhone, iPad, HomePod, AirPlay 2 speakers, and Apple TV. And finally, I also wrote about how the HomePod can now be used in HomeKit scenes and automations. And it's been going well, so I promised that I would follow up on this on App Stories. By far, the most used feature that I've been taking advantage of is the option to use the HomePod in a scene with the Home app. So Sylvia and I, when we're not falling asleep while watching a TV show, we're watching, I mentioned on another podcast, Mac Stories Unplugged for club members, we've been binging Lucifer, but usually before sleep we put on something more, fun or relaxing, like Modern Family, that kind of stuff.
Right.
If we don't fall asleep while watching a TV show of that kind, we like to sort of fall asleep while listening to music. We have a relaxing playlist on Apple Music, and usually the process would be a manual one. Like I would manually switch the lights to blue or red in the bedroom. And I would shuffle the playlist on my phone, connect to the HomePod, lower the volume at like 10 or 12% because it's usually late at night. But now I can do it all automatically. Thanks to iOS 13.2, that was already possible before. I have a scene to make the lights a certain color in the bedroom. But now I can also shuffle the playlist on the HomePod in the same scene. So with a single command, I can turn my lights red or blue and shuffle the relaxing music playlist that we have on the HomePod at a specific volume level, all in one action. And I set up this scene, so that it runs when I tap on a NFC sticker on my nightstand with my phone. So with a single physical action, tapping my phone against the sticker, the lights are dimmed, made blue, and an Apple Music playlist shuffles on the HomePod at very low volume, which helps us fall asleep, which is a nice touch. I think it's a nice feature, it's a nice improvement, and it's just one example of the potential for HomePod automation. I talked about, unconnected, how I'm also using the HomePod as a siren for my HomeKit security system. So there's all kinds of details in that episode, along with a sample of the siren playing on the HomePod.
I know, I heard that. That was crazy.
Yeah, so I really like that this is possible now. So I'm a fan. I continue to be a fan of the HomePod. I have 3 around the house.
Yeah, it is great. And, I actually was thinking recently about moving my second HomePod upstairs and using it as a stereo pair, because I did do that and try that, I think, over the summer at some point, and it's pretty nice. But I like having it down in my office, and I haven't gone to the lengths of buying a third one yet. And I'm kind of glad I left it in the office, though, because one of the things that I set up was when I go downstairs, I have a motion center that sits on a little ledge on the stairs. So the minute that I reach the top of the staircase to go down into my studio, the lights just automatically trigger. It's a scene that turns on the lights over my desk, that sort of thing. And it wakes up my Mac. Now I can add the HomePod and have it start shuffling my favorite playlist. So I just have a little music as I'm walking into the room. And I set that up so that it operates during certain hours of the day. I don't really want to do that like right super early in the morning necessarily. So I've moved it to do that when I come back downstairs, say, later in the morning, and I kind of leave that working like that until around dinner time or so. So that's really cool. The other thing that I would mention about that handoff action that's really nice is that, the feature for handing off to the HomePod is limited to iPhones, but that shortcut action is not. So that does allow you to move things back and forth using iPads and other AirPlay 2 speakers. So that it's actually more versatile than the actual physical device, which makes it really a handy thing to use.
Yeah, absolutely. So HomePod automation and scenes and integration with shortcuts. Very nice update. I haven't played around with the multi-user voice recognition yet. I believe you have, John, but you did for the first update when it was kind of broken. I don't know, has it gotten any better for you in the meantime?
Well, once I got it set up, it took a while. It probably took me about 20 minutes to set it up. And I knew going into it that it might be rocky because our friend Mike Hurley had problems too. And I think he spent about a half an hour troubleshooting it and trying to figure out how to get it to work. And so I did a lot of the same things he did. I'm not convinced really that anything I did actually fixed it. I have a sneaking suspicion that maybe what was happening was that Jennifer's voice was being processed on the Siri's server side, and eventually it was just, kind of passed back as a recognized voice and just started working. But however that worked, it took about 20 minutes to get set up. And once it's set up, it's really good. And I set up for my son too, so that, we can all make any requests. And it's the personal requests that are the nice ones, because you can, say, you can ask Siri to set a reminder or to check your calendar or to send a text message. And now it'll send the text message from you instead of the default, whoever's the default person on the account in the past. So that and your own reminders list, that sort of thing, which is really nice. And we haven't used it a lot yet. I've only had it set up for a couple of days, but once it's working, which I don't know if it's still been a problem for people because I don't know how to undo it. and because I think at one point with my son, I did turn it off and turn it back on to see if it would send him through the setup process again, and it didn't. So I didn't really have a way to retest it. And as a result, I don't really know if it's still a problem. But yeah, once it was set up, it's been perfect, and I enjoy it a lot. This episode of App Stories is brought to you by Collide, a new user-focused security Slack app. It messages employees when their security systems aren't as secure as they should be on their Mac, Windows, or Linux device. So with the Collide app, if a user has a device that isn't complying with security best practices, they'll be notified with clear instructions on what's wrong, plus steps on how to fix it. They can even confirm in real time that everything's been sorted out with the interactive button inside of Slack. Collide was designed with user privacy in mind. This means a bunch of great things, like the fact that your users will know what data is being collected about their devices, plus information on who can see that data, and the option to look at the full source code of the agent that's running on the device. Collide is already used by hundreds of fast-growing companies who want to level up their device security without locking down their devices. Try Collide's new product for free for 30 days for your whole team. Just go to collide.com. That's KOLIDE.com. Our thanks to Collide for their support of App Stories.
Let's talk about the Apple Watch. So I kind of want to ask you first, which Apple Watch are you using in 2019?
So I'm using two different Apple Watches. I'm using the Series 5 and the Series 4. And when I got my Series 5, I hadn't really thought yet about what I was going to do with the Series 4. I usually hold on to them for a little while. And then in the past, I've done things like the Apple Turn-In program. But then I listened to you and Zach Hall on his Apple Watch podcast talking about using a second watch for sleep tracking. And, I think Zach was the one who made the point that the turn-in value for Apple Watches is really bad. And it is. It's not, you don't get a lot for that. And I could sell it on eBay probably for a little bit more, but there's a certain hassle involved with that. So I figured instead of turning it in, selling it, whatever it is, I didn't have anybody in my family who really wanted it to pass down to them. I thought I would try to use it as a secondary watch for mostly sleep tracking and see how it went, because I'd been doing sleep tracking with my Apple Watch for the better part of a year before that, but it was just with the Series 4 when that was my only Apple Watch. And I guess as an aside, I don't think I would have done this if I wasn't upgrading to the Series 5. I wouldn't go out and buy two Series 5s just to have an Apple Watch for sleep tracking, but I happen to have it and nobody else wanted it. So I started the experiment because using it over the Series 4 over the past year has been nice, but I would wake up every morning and need to charge my phone and charge my watch. And I also had to remember to put it into theater mode, or else, as you roll over in the night or something, it would light up, it would bother my wife, or it would just drain the battery faster. There are a lot of reasons, and you'd have to make sure it was in Do Not Disturb, all those things. And with this secondary watch now, with the Series 4, I have it set up so it is dedicated to sleep tracking. It's always in theater mode. It's always in Do Not Disturb. And the watch face and the apps and everything are really designed to kind of accomplish that, because it is being used while I sleep. I'm not using it in the middle of the night. So it sits during the day. It sits on an Apple Watch charger on my bedside, and at night I just swap the two, and my Series 5 goes on the charger and the Series 4 goes on my wrist. And and you have the settings in the watch app that allows, once you unlock that new watch that you put on your wrist, once you unlock it, it can automatically switch to that one. And so that's kind of how I handle it. You're doing that still too, I assume, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I do, what I've been doing for the past couple of years, really, when I realized that, yes, it is possible to use a single Apple Watch, wear it at night and charge it for like 45 minutes when you're, showering or having breakfast in the morning. That's totally doable. I did it for a couple of years, and then I realized At least for me, that's no way to live. I want to have an Apple Watch that is solely dedicated to sleep tracking. For all the reasons that you mentioned, it removes that tiny bit of friction from the experience. Theater mode is always enabled. Do not disturb is always turned on. It's got settings that prevent it from getting notifications. And even though it's got the same watch face and the same complications as my main watch, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes, the fact that it's already set up for sleep tracking and not never lighting up at night, that ensures that it's a perfect experience, because I never forget to turn on theater mode and do not disturb. Sylvia is not upset anymore. She would often mention you rolled over last night and you woke me up because the watch lit up in my face.
Right.
You don't want that to happen to your partner. And by having a watch that is always set up with the same options that you never touch, you just put it on and you let it do its thing. It monitors your heart rate at night, which is what I use it for, to have sleep tracking data and to make sure that I can have a broad picture of my average resting heart rate at night, and to have data that I can collect over time and spot trends and whatnot. So having an older watch, because for me it's an older watch, it's a series, I believe this time it's my Series 4 from last year, because now I have a Series 5. But last year I was using a Series 2, not even the 3. So I've always been using an older watch to do this kind of stuff. I recommend it if you have an older watch that's lying around, even if it's a Series 1 or a Series 2. You can now upgrade those to watchOS 6.1, which also came out earlier this week, and
Right.
it's available on the Series 1 and 2 watches. Heart rate monitoring will still happen every few minutes in the background, and it totally lasts you 7, 8, 9 hours, however long you sleep each night. There's always the joke of, oh, are you now wearing 2 watches at once? No, I'm not wearing 2 watches. Before I go to sleep, I put on the night watch, and as soon as I wake up, I remove it and I put on the main actual Apple Watch that I use all the time. I like it. It's a setup that works well.
Yeah, it really does. And one of the things I did when I first initially set it up is I went through and I deleted most of the apps that were on the watch. I didn't get rid of everything, but I got rid of a lot. There's very little that gets done on this watch other than the actual automatic sleep tracking. But I do keep the alarms app in the dock and NapBot, because then I can kind of go in and look at that, because that's the one that I've been using, and the Home app, because I have a Hue light in my bedside table. So sometimes I shut that off using my iPad or whatever if I'm using anything in bed, or I just use my watch. So that's a great way to do it. I guess like you, I've basically turned off all the notifications, so that's not an issue. But I do use a different watch face, and the one that I've been using is the Numerals Duo, which I wouldn't use day to day, but it's the one with the really big chunky numbers. So it's the top 2 numbers are the hour and the 2 bottom numbers are the minutes. And I've got it set up so the ones on top are solid and the ones on the bottom are an outline. And so it's really easy to tell the hours from the minutes. And when it's in the middle of the night and I don't have my glasses on, I can, hit the button since it's in theater mode, and I can see what time it is and see if I want to know how close it is to my alarm going off or waking up or whatever. So it's just super easy to read that face. Now, I wouldn't use that during the day because it doesn't have any complications, but it works really well for this use case.
All right, let's talk about our main watches. I want to see your main watch face, John, the one you use during the day, and I want to see your complications. I want to know how you use your Apple Watch and why you use your Apple Watch.
All right, so let's talk about the one that I have more than one set up, but I'm gonna.
Okay, so that's already a difference from my setup. Okay.
Yes, and the one that I use the most, the one that's probably 90% of the time on my watch, is the Infograph Modular, because that's got a lot of complications. And so for me, there are 2 things. Really, the main thing that happens for me on the watch, where I'm actually interacting with the watch regularly, is when I exercise. So in the bottom row, where there are the 3 circular complications, I have workout, so I can start the workout and see, the data. I've got music because I've been kind of moving away from listening to podcasts when I go out for a jog or whatever and listening to more music. And then I have the activity rings just so I can kind of check those throughout the day and see how I'm doing. So that's kind of where I start. But then in the middle, and this is really new, I used to keep the weather in the middle, but I really don't need a ton of weather data. I really just want to know the temperature more than anything else. So in the middle, I have the now playing, so that if I'm around the house and I have a HomePod playing, or if I'm listening to something while I'm out for a run, I can see where it is and quickly get into the controls to move around within, skip songs or move around within a podcast or whatever it happens to be. So that's in the center and the biggest complication. Then up top, I've got carrot weather on the far left, which has the circular complication that shows you basically the temperature and the cloud cover. And then I have the date above the time, and that's what I use for the most part. It's so those all get used while I'm out running more than anything else, because I usually go out and exercise. I have a cellular Series 5, so I leave my iPhone behind and use these things, stream the music and that sort of thing.
Interesting. So the now playing complication in the middle of the watch face.
Yep.
Why not in the dock?
I have had it in the dock for a long time, and I switched this really just like 10 days ago to see if it improved the situation from, one of the things is when you're out exercising, you've got, as I guess the default, you have the stats, you have the time and pace and all that stuff showing on the watch. And I found that sometimes I had a hard time getting to the now playing, where I had to go in. I don't like using the dock. I don't use the dock very much at all. I'm trying to see if it's more of a habit of not being used to the dock because we didn't always have the dock and I never really adopted it, or whether it's just not for me. And so I thought I would try to surface the now playing a little better than it is when it's in the dock. And that's why I moved it, to see if it reduced the friction enough when I'm out and about exercising.
Mm-hmm. I don't like the dock either. I find the scrolling behavior to be too finicky to interact with on a watch. I feel like it requires a fine precision with scrolling these tiny cards that I don't necessarily have when I'm using a watch. Like scrolling the digital crown slowly is very hard for me to do. And I feel like I always scroll too fast, and it requires too much precision to open what I want. What I would like to see is a simple dock with a grid of apps. Just press it and have a grid of your favorites, and that would be my dock. I don't remember. I think it used to be a grid at some point. Maybe not. They changed to this scrolling behavior. I still don't like it. I said when they introduced this design, I said I don't like it, and it hasn't grown on me. I think it requires too much precision to scroll between apps, and I would very much prefer a grid, even of just icons. Just show me icons. I don't need to see the live preview. I just want a quick way to get to my 4 used apps, stuff like Now Playing, Shazam, Workout, and Heart Rate. The stuff that I otherwise open my honeycomb view instead.
Right.
But currently the dock requires too much scrolling, too much precision. I would like the dock to become instead a sort of a sloppy UI, like something that I could just hit with my fat finger and just open this icon. It needs to be easier to interact with.
I am glad to hear that I'm not the only person who overshoots the app I'm looking for in my dock, because I do
all
that
the time.
I do it all the time, and that's why I moved the Now Playing screen up to a complication. So we'll see if that sticks. That's the most recent change of my main watch face. So the jury's still out on whether that's going to actually stick, but so far I've been enjoying it. This episode of App Stories is brought to you by Direct Mail, an easy-to-use email marketing app designed exclusively for the Mac to help you create and send great-looking email newsletters. Email marketing is still an incredibly cost-effective way to reach your customers and to grow your business. And for the past 15 years, Mac users around the world have trusted the Direct Mail app to handle all of their email marketing needs. It's designed just for the Mac, which means it is fast and easy to use. Plus, it works great with the other apps and services you already use. With Direct Mail, you can get in-depth campaign reports that show exactly who's reading, clicking, and sharing your newsletters. Grow your mailing list by creating email sign-up forms that you can add to your website or Facebook page. And save time by integrating with over 1,000 other apps and services on the Mac and on the web, and a whole lot more. They have real humans ready to chat with you live for customer support and answer any questions that you might have. And Direct Mail is the #1 top-rated email marketing app for the Mac with 5-star reviews on the App Store, GetApp, and elsewhere. And it's trusted by small businesses, nonprofits, schools, and Fortune 500 companies alike. Direct Mail is free to download and get started. Listeners of this show can save 10% off all full-featured pricing plans. Head on over to directmailmac.com/appstories to check it out. Again, that URL, it's directmailmac.com/appstories to get 10% off when you opt for a full feature plan. Our thanks to Direct Mail for their support of App Stories.
All right, I want to talk about my watch face because I believe you're gonna have questions. So I have screenshots in the document. You can take a look at my watch face right there. So as you will see, I use the infograph modular watch face. On the top right, I have the date and the time, and I don't use the European military time style. It's one of those things in my Americanization of Federico that happened. I now use the AM PM time. On the left, my complication is the activity rings. I use that because it keeps me in check during the day, especially for the even if on a specific day I'm not working out, I still want to make sure that I stand every few minutes and that I take a walk or something. In the middle of the screen, so this is new this year for me, I put the reminders complication. I went all in with reminders as my task manager with iOS and iPadOS 13. I'm still using it, and the complication is a great way to see what's coming up, but also to tap on the complication to jump to the today view and check off a few reminders from the watch. Now, the bottom section of the watch face is by far the one that I use the most on my watch. Most of my interactions, so when it's not about glancing at the time or reading a notification, when I actively interact with the watch, it happens with these 3 complications at the bottom. On the left, there's Carrot Weather, which I find more accurate for my area in Rome than the native weather app by Apple, that I believe is powered by the Weather Channel. And I'm using AccuWeather instead with Carrot Weather. Okay. And I prefer having the more accurate data. And also Carrot Weather has an amazing watch app that you can customize. So if I just tap on the complication, it jumps directly to the Carrot Weather app and it shows me the forecast for the next few hours, which I really like. In the middle of the screen is in the middle of the bottom row of the watch face is the water minder complication. This one I use multiple times during the day. A few months ago, I made a promise to myself that I would drink at least 2 liters of water every day. I am not sure, John, what that means for you in ounces or whatever.
I have a rough idea of what a liter is.
It's roughly like 2 bottles of water.
Right.
Like 2 big bottles of water.
Right.
And I customized the water reminder watch app, which you also can see in the screenshot, so that it has these quick shortcuts to enter a specific amount of milliliters. So 150 milliliters would be more or less a small plastic glass of water. 300 is 2 glasses, and 500 milliliters is a small bottle of water. Like if I drink an entire small bottle of water,
Right.
I have a shortcut for that. And during the day, whenever I drink a glass of water, I tap on the complication and I tap the button and it's logged. Then when I go back to the watch face, you can see the circular indicator and the number. That's the number of milliliters that I consumed during the day. So for reference, 2,000 milliliters would be 2 liters. That's the way that it works in the metric system.
It's easy that way.
It's very easy that way, believe me. So this I do all the time, and it's a great way to have both the complication that acts as a measurement tool. But when you tap it, it takes you into the grid. It's a great way because if I just glance at the watch, I can see my progress for drinking water. And
Right.
if it's like 6 p.m. and I've only got, 700 milliliters in, I know I got to drink more. I got to hydrate more. But also when I tap it, I have this, like it takes me 2 taps literally to log some water. And I don't do food tracking. I still got to play around with this new app coming out, which I think we're going to review. It's called Food Noms.
Yes.
It's an excellent food tracking app that's coming out on the iPhone. Maybe that one I'm going to use, but I believe it's optimized for the US. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do in Italy. But I don't do food tracking, but I do water tracking. I started doing a few months ago. It's been super beneficial to just to my lifestyle in general, making sure that I drink enough water every day. It's a really good habit, I guess.
It is a good thing. You get dehydrated, you don't realize what kind of effects it has on your body. And I'm guilty of the same thing. And I've been doing. I actually went on Amazon like a month ago and bought a really nice like stainless steel water jug thing with a screw top,
nice.
so that I can have it and bring it down to my studio and then keep the lid on so I don't pull a Casey Liss and pour an entire liter of water into my computer. And instead I can, just when I need to take, I don't have to go upstairs to go get a glass of water. In other words, I can sit down here and have it.
Very nice. Also, the other complication that I use a lot is Home Run. Home Run by Aaron Pierce is it's an iPhone app that lets you set up the watch app. So on the iPhone, you set up this experience that you use on the watch. And what you can do is you can essentially put together your own custom layout for triggering HomeKit scenes. So the grid that you can see also in the screenshot with the 2 beds and the light and the heart and the power button, that's a custom layout that I made. And each of those buttons, I chose the icon, I chose the color, and I chose the placement. And each of those runs a HomeKit scene. So at the top, the 2 beds, one is the purple bedroom scene, and the other is the blue bedroom scene.
All right.
The other, the yellow one in the middle, that's my HomeKit scene called All Lights Up, which is a super easy way to turn on all the lights at once. If something's going on, or we have people over for dinner, stuff like that. I want to make sure that everything is lit up, and with a single HomeKit scene that does it, and I can trigger it from my watch. It takes 2 taps. The red one is the one that I just mentioned. It turns the lights red and plays a playlist on my HomePod on shuffle. So that runs one of the new scenes that I set up in 13.2. And the other is called Safe Shutdown. I have 2 shutdown scenes in my HomeKit setup. The one called Safe, I gotta explain. So every day at sunrise, I have an automation in HomeKit that turns off all the lights, all of them. But I don't go to sleep at sunrise. At least usually. I go to sleep. Usually. So that runs on its own at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. whenever sunrise is. When I go to sleep, I run Safe Shutdown, and I call it safe because it turns off all the lights inside except the ones on the balconies that we have. So it keeps the lights outside on just to give just to see that there's people in this house. There's folks inside,
right.
And living in Rome, it's good practice to do. So before I go to sleep, I run this scene so that we can sleep nicely because all the lights are off. But outside, they still stay on for a couple of hours while we're sleeping. So which makes me feel safe. Therefore, the name. This is Home Run. along with Water Reminder, by far the two complications/apps that I use the most.
That's really interesting. I think the water minder complication is one of the best designed ones that I've seen, because it does, as you said, it does a great job of giving you a quick glanceable look at exactly how much you've logged so far, and then you can jump in, get a little more data about what you've actually logged, and then pick from your grid of customized amounts of liquid. And that's really nice. Let me ask you a couple of questions.
Okay.
The first one is on reminders, because, all right, let's say that you have a reminder scheduled for, let's say you had a reminder scheduled for yesterday at 5 p.m. and you didn't get around to doing it. And now it's today, and you and I are sitting here talking. Is that 5 p.m. reminder from yesterday going to be there in the middle, or is that going to be whatever's closest to today's time? Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah. I don't remember. Because I try not to keep reminders overdue for long.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I can tell you, no.
I don't believe you about keeping overdue reminders. Just so you're aware.
You don't believe me?
I don't believe you.
Well, I try not to.
All right.
Today's an exception. Today's an exception. I had a reminder due at 3 p.m. that I still need to get to. But the complication is showing me the next due one at 10 p.m. So it's 7:40 p.m. right now. It's showing me a reminder due at 10 p.m. The one from 3 p.m. is overdue. I can see it in the today view of the reminders app, but it's not showing in the complication.
All right. Well, that's good to know, because that actually, I think, makes
that makes you feel bad otherwise.
Right. Because that's what I don't want, is a complication that makes me feel bad. And I did move reminders into my dock because I do like the reminders interface on the watch. And so that's one that I might toy with trying somewhere. And I guess it would probably fit best in that middle complication that's the large one that has some room for text. So I guess I understand why you're doing that. The one that I would add potentially to my watch is Home Run, because it is really handy to be able to go in there and just tap these buttons and quickly turn on scenes. But this layout makes a lot of sense to me. Do you not use any of the other faces anymore? Because I have a couple others that I use not often, but I do use them.
No, I actually removed them from my watch.
Really?
It's the only one that I have, so I don't even accidentally change between watch faces anymore. It's all that I need. Like I don't need to put on a fancy watch face. If I go out for dinner and people look at my watch and they don't believe it's a fancy watch face, whatever, I don't care about their opinion. I just changed the band of the watch. I don't care about the watch face. The software that I prefer is the software that I prefer. I don't care about others. They can tell me what to put in there.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, look, I worked on myself years ago for this stuff. I don't care about other people's opinions.
Good for you.
Thank you.
No, I totally get that, Federico. I've got three others though, and they're not because of what other people think though.
Good for you. Why do you keep them there?
Well, I rarely use the Siri watch face, but when I come back from exercising, I do like that recovery tile that shows up.
Yes.
So it'll show you what your heart rate has reduced down to after a minute, I think, and then 2 minutes. And that's just nice. I mean, I just swipe over to it after I come back and take a shower and can see, what the recovery is like. And then I have two others. I kind of like the California dial a little bit with just the tick marks.
California dial is a bunch of the old people watch faces, right?
Yeah, exactly. And when I don't want a lot of stuff, if I just want to look at it.
I just love that you said nothing. You just said exactly.
It is.
Yeah, but you didn't get upset. You just said exactly.
Yes. Well, I'm just going to let that one go right on by.
You were saying, sorry, the California dial.
I was saying the California dial. I've got it set up with just the tick marks and just two complications: activity, which I always like to keep track of, and the date. And it's got a color right now, which is the pine color, which is the color of the watch band that I got with my Series 5. And I just kind of like it matching once in a while and having kind of a very calm, don't have to have a lot of stuff on my watch scenario, because maybe it's the evening, maybe I'm not exercising anymore. I already took care of it, or I've given up for the day. I'm never going to get around to it. And so I like having that once in a while. And I did the same thing with the modular. The modular actually was what I was using before the infograph modular, and probably can go at this point. I wanted to experiment to see what it was like using the modular with a monochrome display, using just color, one color instead of all the different colors of the different complications. And yeah, it's all right, but it's not one that I use a lot. The only thing that's really different between that and my main infograph modular is that bottom row of 3 circular icons of complications is workout, just like infograph modular, then overcast for listening to podcasts, and then activity. So it's really it's kind of the podcast version of exercising. And then in the middle, instead of now playing, I put the heart rate tracking so I can see, what my heart rate is while I'm exercising. So yeah, I mean, I don't use any of those 3 very often. Infograph modular, as I said at the very beginning, 90% of what I use. But I like to use the other ones to experiment. And Siri is just kind of fun to have for that recovery tile more than anything else. This episode of App Stories is brought to you by Kensington, the people who make universal docking stations that are designed to increase productivity. You can get access to more ports and make your sleek MacBook, Chromebook, or other laptop as powerful as a desktop. It's plug and play with no drivers, so you can enjoy up to dual 4K displays with HDMI and DisplayLink video connectors, plus USB 3.0, USB-C, and Thunderbolt 3 with power delivery available. The Kensington engineering team has 3 decades of experience in high-volume manufacturing of hardware IT products, plus rigorous testing cycles and quality control means that their products are tested above industry standards. If you're an IT decision maker looking to find the right docking solution for your organization, check out Kensington's Pro Concierge program and test drive a docking solution today. Visit kensington.com/appstories right now to check out Kensington. Again, that's kensington.com/appstories to learn more about their docking solutions. Our thanks to Kensington for their support of the show.
Before we wrap up this episode, I just wanted to mention how, just in case it's not obvious, I truly believe that the Apple Watch, along with AirPods, is some of the best work that Apple has ever done. Personally speaking, it's the, it started out years ago, a bit, off to a bit of a rocky start. The Apple Watch, the WatchOS platform for developers was not great, and the watch was slow, and Apple sort of needed to figure out what the focus of the product was. As Apple has found what the Apple Watch story is, it's fitness and health and notifications. I truly believe that the Apple Watch and WatchOS have blossomed into this amazing product that I consider the most important electronic device that I have. The fact that it monitors my heart rate and it checks on my activity level, and I can perform an ECG on the watch. I think that stuff is wild. And along with AirPods, I mentioned those 2 together because the miniaturization skills that Apple has shown with the Apple Watch, the fact that it's now got an always-on display and you can use it in cellular mode with an eSIM, and the AirPods, the new ones with noise cancellation, I think it's we take this stuff for granted, but it's a marvel of technology that we have such tiny, portable, elegant products that do so much. And so I wasn't a super fan of the Apple Watch when it came out. It didn't meet all my expectations, but especially since the Series 4 last year, which was the first time that I could try a cellular watch. We didn't have cellular for the Series 3 in Italy. And especially now with the Series 5 and the always-on display, I am completely in love with the Apple Watch. And I do believe that as time has gone on, the platform has matured, has grown so much. There's so much choice, even though, we often complain about lacking custom watch faces, other things that we as tech people complain about. I think there's so much choice, even in the default phases. If you just go to the App Store and download a bunch of apps and play around with complications, and also try on different bands. I think it's the whole story around the Apple Watch has gotten so much better, especially over the past 2 years. That I just wanted to point this out because we talk about the minutiae of these things and we complain about the features that are missing, but I think it's also important to step back from that analysis and appreciate like the product as a whole. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel the same way, and I feel like if you went back and listened to our 3 episodes about the Apple Watch, the very first one we did, both of us were using the Apple Watch more so for notifications than anything else.
Yeah.
And that's really evolved, right? It's an interesting blend between notifications, which are important, especially if you have cellular. I really like that if I'm out running around the block, if I get an important text message from my wife, I get it. I mean, I don't have to have my giant, Pro Max phone with me all the time. So, notifications are still important, but the health and fitness has just made leaps and bounds since the very first Apple Watch. And now that I think is probably, for me, the most important aspect of the Apple Watch. Plus, there's on top of that, just kind of monitoring little bits of information in your life, whether you're recording your water intake, like you described with Waterminder, or switching scenes in the Home app, or with something like Home Run. It's really amazing what you can do with this thing, especially when you combine it with the AirPods and the AirPods Pro and leaving your phone behind. It's pretty neat how you can do all those things. Well, Federico, I think we can wrap it up there for this week. I want to thank our 3 sponsors again. That's Collide, Direct Mail, and Kensington. As usual, you can find me and Federico over at macstories.net, and you can find Federico over on Twitter and Instagram. He's at Viticci. That's VITICCI. And I am at John Voorhees, JOHNVORHWS. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.